we'll have a conversation with Napoleon in a moment. But I think the first thing that folks want to see, and will make everything clear about what we're doing here, is the actual movie. This is the first ImpactAlpha production, so we're now a movie production company as well as and we couldn't be more excited. I'll introduce some of the folks, but it'll make more sense to you once you've seen the movie. So let's just roll it if we can.
Present situation comes in at 144 down.
Again, there's a lot of risk out there. We're going to see what data this week can actually shake up markets.
How much risk do you really want to put on a volatile summer month ahead of some potentially
But these banks are covered, and the FDIC would have to take a look ahead. Simon Matthew of Morgan Stanley Private Wealth Management. So we're doing this next. A simpler way.
I am always optimistic.
Let's go back a little, maybe the beginning. My story's filled with ups and downs, plenty of heartache and heartbreak, but through it all, there's joy, purpose, and smiles. I grew up down east in Grimesland, about 20 minutes outside of Greenville in rural eastern North Carolina. It was overwhelmingly black, incessantly positive, and economically diverse. It was rural and fun in the community that raised me. My parents were instrumental in giving me perspective, the idea that my life is not solely my own. I was born into the privilege of my ancestors and my community, and as a consequence, I have a duty to carry my leg of the race. I felt that responsibility from an early age, and I think that urge to do my part continues to show up in my work. Both of my parents were activists in their own right, returning home to rural eastern North Carolina to start a family and improve the communities they grew up in, and after years of working in DC, New York City, and Atlanta. My first lessons in social change came from my mom. In the late 70s, she returned to teach at the predominantly black grade school she attended as a child. As one of the first black educators since desegregation, she recruited others to her cause. In the early years, angry parents would watch her classroom, worried about their kids' education. Her solution was to involve every parent in her lesson plans. By the second week, most parents were gone, and those who stayed became her staunchest allies. I understood from an early age, by watching my father, the idea that there is a value in having someone invest in you because they believe in you. My dad did not have a wealthy relative, so he had to become his own rich uncle.
I was raised on an 80-acre farm, and I mean, we farmed. I mean, I came from that for real. And that's why they say everyone else left and went to college, because we don't want to deal with it. When I was working a regular job, it was kind of hard to get up in the morning. But when I started doing this entrepreneur stuff, different small businesses or whatever, I could wake up 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd be ready to go. I could not wait for the sun to come up. The capitalization is the key. When you're uncapitalized, it's hard to make a business work. And when you're small, it's hard to borrow money.
Both of my parents were proud HBCU alums, and I followed in their footsteps. I went to NC Central University on a full academic scholarship. It was there that I came to fully understand and embrace my own history and culture. I loved finance, and after graduating from Central, I learned to underwrite commercial credit as an analyst at M&F Bancorp. I had always dreamed of working with stocks, but M&F let me learn commercial credit while working for a black financial institution with ties back to Reconstruction, something that deeply resonated with me. Getting my MBA at UNC taught me entrepreneurship, impact investing, and social enterprise, in addition to introducing me to a brilliant network of collaborators that helped launch me into the next phase of my career, starting with my work at Self-Help.
So when Napoleon first came to work at Self-Help, he worked directly with me. I sent him down to become the interim leader of a black credit union in Kinston that would otherwise have failed and be liquidated. And it was the primary lending source for 3,000 or 4,000 families, and Napoleon turned it around. Well, no sooner had he finished that one, we had another credit union in Charlotte. And I was like, okay, Napoleon, get in your car, could drive down there, and we again turned around a credit union that otherwise would have been liquidated and put out of business.
It's hard to hold your ethics and values in a sector like finance with all the profiteering and bad actors. But Martin has held that line. He taught me to see opportunities and hold my morality while pursuing them. Deciding to work at self-help instead of a venture capital firm gifted me a lifelong mentor in Martin and everything he taught me about social change. My time at self-help was formative in my thinking about Black wealth building. I left to go to Detroit to deepen my impact investing chops as the social investment officer of the Cressy Foundation. We did some great things, but then North Carolina pulled me back to serve as the Deputy Secretary of Commerce. Picking the state's Department of Commerce over a career in philanthropy meant that I'd probably earn less in the short run, and I'd definitely have less job security. But it showed me the power of public service, the diversity of needs right here in my home state, and the universe of obvious and unlikely allies that would help me build my future companies.
Napoleon has always been the strongest advocate for minority-owned businesses. He's always been the one in the room who has a different idea and an innovative way of doing things. His leadership and his ability to work across differences and really stay focused on a common goal is a unique trait.
And it is shown throughout his career, the bright mind and the intellect to not only address specific problems, but look at the broader picture to understand where we're going as a society, where we're going as a state and national economy. He has really been able to focus in on solutions that have global implication. And when you step back and you look at it, you realize just the significance of his work and of his thoughts.
The historical divide has been that labor is people of color, while entrepreneurs and equity owners are white men. It made me think about how those factors of production have played out over the years to drive the racial wealth divide, and what we can do to remedy that.
I remember very early on, like very early in our relationship, he used to be like, I believe that I can change the world. Like, I really believe that I can. There was a point where he decided that he wanted to go full-time into starting these businesses. He just came to me and he asked, could I have just 2 years just to do everything I can and put everything I can into getting these businesses started, and it means I'm gonna travel and I'm gonna be gone a lot. But can you give me that?
Without Eddie's support, encouragement, and acceptance, this leg of my career and realization of my vision would never have been possible. She is my truest partner, and her faith in me means everything. This final pivot of choosing entrepreneurship over a steady job proved to be the riskiest, but also most rewarding. Yes, it meant working constantly and zero long-term job security. But it also gave me, my companies, and my co-founders the opportunity to bring my entire self and beliefs and priorities to bear every day for the benefit of my communities. Most cities have evolved to prioritize property and the owners of that property over people, especially low-wealth people. And to prove that, we started Activest, which really brought out the extractive nature of much of municipal finance and is starting to bring out alternatives. Activist had made a name pointing out the extractive policies some cities impose on their own citizens. After the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, we exposed the fines and fees that were keeping down Black and other communities of color.
Right after Michael Brown's death in 2015, one of the things that we learned as we kind of started making relationships in Ferguson is about what led to this fatal encounter between Mike Brown and the police. And it wasn't just, a one-off. There was actually a systemic practice that Ferguson was balancing its budgets on the backs of, its local residents. We know that there's communities across the country like Ferguson that are, Black and brown communities that are catching hell from policing practices or extractive development policies that are neither good for the financial health of that community, nor are they good for the residents. We wanted to push regulators, we wanted to push rating agencies and analysts and investors to really start to think about, this dynamic of valuing property over people and flipping that on its head to think about people over property.
And now Activist also manages the Fire Fund, a first-of-its-kind fixed income fund that invests in cities, companies, and nonprofits to advance racial equity and fiscal justice.
That new product is our first attempt to really realize sort of a multi-pronged strategy to realize some of the initial insights that Napoleon had in terms of what communities need in terms of access to capital.
My career has been based on a few key insights. From a purely relational perspective, friendly equity is superior to traditional debt in most ways. We've never trusted Main Street black businesses with equity. It's been more profitable to burden them with debt. If we are serious about a just economy, this must change. Think of equity as a promise of partnership and debt as a promise cheapened by interest and the threat of collection. Historically, across the finance industry, there has been a propensity to offer debt as a primary only solution to financing needs for black and brown communities. Those poor options for capital create suboptimal opportunities to accomplish business goals. For low wealth and communities of color, this proliferation of debt-based finance has made them less resilient to economic downturns and business cycles. By co-investing with them in the equity, the down payment, they started building their own equity, giving them an asset they could leverage for more credit or use for rental income and give to their kids. That's why we started Partners in Equity, to help black business owners buy the commercial properties where they run their businesses. Partners in Equity is really the vehicle for the main streeting of equity.
The investees that we work with have very distinct needs on the capital structures that they need and the creativity that they need in order to create equity. And doing so in a private capacity allows us to work and be creative without our hands being tied on delivering products to those business owners.
This is vitally important, especially now that ESG and DI are under assault, because it's clear that impact investing has fallen short of the promise to create substantive change in black, brown, and modest wealth communities. This shortfall is partially due to a lack of diversity among asset owners and advisors, partially due to an inability to scale novel impact strategies, and partially due to a lack of impact accountability and incentives to change. That's why we started Southern Reconstruction Fund and Fund 1. SRF is working to scale the capital and capacity of Southern communities to finally fulfill the promise of Reconstruction.
Really started off of what the unfulfilled promise of Reconstruction could and should be. We were thinking about this work. We were really brought into with some early funding from a few really courageous family members, ancestral ties to the Wilmington Massacre. As we think about real change in our communities, that doesn't happen in $100,000 short-term grant cycles. We need to start that conversation at least in the billions. And so for us, particularly if we're talking about black communities, we said that had to run through the South. 55% of black communities are based in the South. If you actually touch 6 southern cities, you'll touch 50% of undercapitalized black communities. So Memphis, Birmingham, New Orleans, Charlotte, Houston, and Atlanta. You look at 90% of the families that identify as rural black families are actually located in the South. And so you have the largest concentration of black communities that are in the South and the largest concentration of undercapitalized black communities that are in the space.
Our capital is patient, affordable, and flexible, giving our investees the time, space, and trust to fully direct and pursue their own visions of impact and prosperity.
I've known Napoleon now for 15 years. We went to Kingdom Flagler Business School together. He, in many ways, is an inspiration to me to go down this route of what it looks like to be an impact investor, what it looks like to be a mission-aligned investor, and how you can do so by working with communities of color and helping to address some of the inequities that we see on a daily basis.
It's all geared towards building ecosystems for black wealth creation, not just doing one thing, but doing all the things we know are critical for success. We're going to be a movement that funds cities based on the fiscal justness of their budgets and operations through Activest. We're going to make equity available to Main Street entrepreneurs for the first time and turn an entire community of commercial tenants into owners through PI. We're going to put money into novel concepts as early as we can through SRF, into ImpactAlpha thesis with potential for transformative change.
As long as we're able to be courageous and to say what we know to be true and to speak from the facts that we have about what's happening in our communities, we have a tremendous opportunity right now to fundamentally change the way that our systems work. And I think Activest is a small part of that, but there's a movement of folks that are actually reimagining things in a very different way, and that's really exciting.
And so that was our agreement. He had 2 years to do everything he could to get his businesses up and off the ground. And it was successful and it was working. And then he got ALS and we had COVID. So everything got grounded. So.
Hello, it's me, Napoleon. I'm reaching out with a message. As any of you that have spoken to me in the past few months have noticed, I sound a little bit different. The reason for that is I have ALS.
while we face challenges in our lives. Napoleon serves as a role model to all of us to keep moving forward, to stay committed to your purpose and your passion. And others are drawn to that. And that's what he's been able to do as well, is build a team of people and supporters.
Napoleon has a way of connecting with people that's disarming. Started calling him my professional big brother. There was a way that if I mentioned having an issue or being challenged by something, he had a way of being able to sort of advocate for me.
My work was really about directly confronting white institutions and white leaders, working with foundation executives or senior staff at a foundation or local leaders to really confront directly the ways that white supremacy shows up in our institutions, for instance. That's what I did, right? And that was what my work at Frontline was. And what Napoleon was about was like, yeah, I know they're doing that, but let's focus on building economic opportunity for Black communities. And so in many ways, it was a really important marriage, because I definitely needed to think more deeply about how these financial systems worked and didn't have that analysis or that knowledge prior to working with Napoleon. And I think hopefully I helped sort of shape and mold some of his analysis around race and racism as well.
Napoleon has put it front and center for us of how we should approach it and the kind of tenacity that we should be approaching it with. Where he is today is not where he's always been physically, but mentally, you know, he's light years beyond where he was last year.
He works in a way there's a lasting impact. It's not just for that day or that week. He truly works in a way that there's generational impact in people's lives, and that's special.
I didn't really understand it. I still don't understand it. But I'm proud of him because, you know, I would have checked out. You know, I don't know if I had the mental fortitude to do what he's doing. I wonder sometimes why, you know, like why him, why the good ones, you know? That's why, they're the strong ones.
Brilliance with great heart and the passion to do something new that people haven't done before. Those three things together make Napoleon a force in the world and a force for good. 20 years from now, people will be thinking about Napoleon's courage and the things he started that others of us needed to pick up and finish to make the world a better place.
Welcome, Napoleon. I'm so happy to see you.
You're a lot taller than I remember.
This job grows on you. Napoleon Wallace, his resume, sterling. It's not an exaggeration to say that he generated an innovative idea almost every single day. Therefore, it's my great honor to present Napoleon Wallace with membership in the state's highest honorary society, the Order of the Longleaf Pine.
Governor Cooper, thank you for this award. The Order of the Longleaf is a prestigious honor, and I am truly grateful to have my contributions acknowledged in this way. And I will continue to build and create for the benefit of our great state for as long as the universe allows.
In the years since my ALS diagnosis, a lot has changed. I've been known for a booming voice, gregarious demeanor, and a verbose style. It's been a transition to go from being a vocal CEO to more of a quiet leader, but it has its benefits. I talk a lot less and listen more. I know many people won't believe me, but it's a gift. I'm able to remove all the distracting elements in my life and to focus my mind and energy on the things that matter: family, friends, and the work. A mantra of my youth goes that you've got nothing to complain about, and even if you do, no one wants to hear it. Looking back, it's a bit grittier than the more common advice to make lemonade from the lemons life gives you, but the proof's in the pudding. Despite setbacks, obstacles, and disappointment, I believe there is still opportunity, potential, and even joy. As long as you keep working and looking for the good, the upside, the silver lining, it will be there every time. You just have to be ruthlessly dogged in your pursuit of it.
I can't imagine Napoleon not working. Like, I can't, like, he just cares so much about this. I couldn't imagine him stopping. I just don't think it would be a life that he would want to live.
I am always optimistic about the direction of the work, but less about the velocity of the work. Finding the will and courage to take action is what we are trying to solve.
So there you go. That was the world premiere. So we're very delighted to have some of the folks who are in the film. You'll hear in a moment from Micah and Talib, but also Napoleon's dad, Art Wallace, over here. Wilson Lester and Partners in Equity in the back there, Wilson. And I want to give a special shout out to Yuri Vezgant over here with the camera as always, who was tireless in getting this done and lives in Durham nearby and just put in many hours. And then also I want to thank the ImpactAlpha team. We have Zulema and Dennis over here. And I think Caesar is somewhere nearby. Oh, there's Caesar in the back. And have I missed anybody? I also want to thank Robert Wood Johnson and particularly Kimberly Cornett, who let us redirect some grant money that we had to make this film. And Homero is with Activest and Next World, which you'll see as well. So now we're going to have a discussion, but first we have kind of the post-game interview with Napoleon that we actually pre-recorded because of the sort of demo gods of, and you can imagine the logistics. So last week I had a conversation as if we had all just watched the film together, and then Napoleon and I were having a conversation. So let's roll that for a few minutes if we could. Hello, Napoleon, and welcome to SOCAP. You've got a lot of friends here, but give a shout out to all the folks in the room and let them greet you as well.
Hello, SOCAP.
Let's start with your name. In the film, Eddie says you knew you could change the world. There's another historical Napoleon who also wanted to conquer the world. A coincidence?
My Napoleon is a family name. I don't hear it much in the world, but at the minor family reunions, I am only one of 4.
Okay, and then the other thing is about the voice. I think people will be curious. It was really important, I think, in the film that the narration be in your voice, and it's your words, and you're using a text-to-voice program. Actually, there's 2. There's the one now with the iPad that you're using, but then also in the film, an AI-generated voice. How do you sound to you?
You might notice that I sound a little different. Please don't be intimidated. While I may sound like artificial intelligence, I promise I'm not that smart. I speak through a device, so if you need me to repeat anything, just let me know.
Let's just jump right in. The subtitle of the film talks about the reconstruction of Black wealth. I've been fascinated by the historical reconstruction, but what does reconstruction mean today, and why is it resonant?
Reconstruction, in my mind, represents a time in American history when we were striving to correct the deep divides that had torn the country apart. Reconstruction embodied a national effort to heal and move forward by expanding the electoral, educational, economic, and social opportunities available to all Americans, particularly the newly freed slaves. Today, I believe we face similarly troubling divisions. To overcome them, we will need a new kind of Reconstruction, one that invests deeply in our communities and institutions to build a more united, healthy, and prosperous future.
One more thing, the video flicks at the Wilmington coup of 1898. I know that's known history in North Carolina, I think somewhat less so outside of the state, but it ended this period of multiracial fusion power. Is that kind of coalition or alliance possible right now?
I believe so. This shared vision brought together a diverse coalition of wealthy abolitionists, newly freed Black Americans, poor white sharecroppers, and indigenous peoples. There is immense power and potential in building a coalition that includes both the historically privileged and the most marginalized, working together toward a common goal of inclusion and shared prosperity.
In the video, Micah talks about your marriage and your ongoing dialogue around dismantling racist structures on the one hand, and then enabling access to capital and entrepreneurship on the other. How do you put it all together in a strategy?
I would begin by noting that race itself is a form of capital, deeply rooted in ownership, which ties our nation's history and understanding of wealth, economy, and race in persistent and unnatural ways. That being said, color me a capitalist, because I believe in markets and, more importantly, in equitable access to them as the cornerstone of both economic and social mobility. While the factors of production may look different today, the core ingredients, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, remain essential for creating products and generating profit. Unfortunately, when both the U.S. Constitution and Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations were written in 1776, the role of the entrepreneur, along with the wealth creation and enablement, was accessible to only a small, predominantly white and predominantly male segment of the population. Since then, we've been on the long, uphill climb to expand access to the ownership economy to all and remove the dangerous presuppositions of race, gender, and wealth as indicators of entrepreneurial talent.
Folks will soon hear more about another project we've been working on together, which I'm very excited about. We've called it Metrics Madness. We had first session last year, and we're gearing up for a second round. You've been on a quest for an interoperable measure for social impact. You're betting on something called eQualities, quality adjusted life years. What's all that about?
I believe that measuring years of life is about as objective a measure of impact as we can get. It cuts to the core of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you really think about it. This might be a hot take, but I'd even go as far as to say that financial capital is merely a proxy for the quality and duration of life we can expect from any given activity. I believe that a universal, convertible metric for impact like this brings us closer to answering the key question, is your company profiting more than it produces? This is the crux of the externality loophole that is holding our economy in a state of perpetual adolescence.
Externality loophole. Let's dig in on that. You've said that profitable negative externalities are the rot at the core of the economy. What do you mean by that, and how do we root them out?
I believe that the loophole of profitable externalities, which allows companies to profit beyond what they actually produce, is the single largest driver of social and environmental spillover by corporations. Their ability to harm for profit exemplifies the worst cases of free-riding and rent-seeking behavior in today's economy. It incentivizes destructive, short-term profit engines that fuel a culture of extractive finance and shareholder primacy. This can't be countered by products and coalitions alone. What's truly needed is a new, compelling way to rethink the natural order of our economy and the role companies should play within it. I've even started to wonder if it would be more effective for all companies to aim for zero environmental and social spillover, rather than having only a few create strong positive impact, while others exploit the externalities loophole.
And just to close it out here, Napoleon, I think one thing folks might be thinking when they see the film and when they see you is, can you really see ALS as a gift?
ALS is a knee-buckling diagnosis, no doubt. But it has also given me the gift of clarity and urgency. Of course, it has been hard in so many other ways, but regarding my work of social change, it has forced me to prioritize what truly matters and enabled me to see the remainder of my career, however long it may be, through a lens of deeper purpose. The illness has sharpened his focus, given me motivation, and made every moment that much sweeter on the transformative impact he can make, despite the physical challenges.
I don't know if folks know that you're now a contributing editor to ImpactAlpha, and we're excited to have you on the case.
Hooray!
And part of our circle as well. So from California to North Carolina, there's a strong thread. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay, Micah and Talib. So we were having a prep call last week, and I asked these guys, and Talib said, I work for Napoleon, and Micah said, I work for Napoleon. And then I realized for the last couple of years, like, I work for Napoleon. Just help situate us in the work. What struck me when I first met Napoleon was trying to circle around so many of the different issues, and each of the organizations, each of the companies plays a part of that. So maybe Micah, just start with Activest and tell us how you and Napoleon came together on that, and sort of what it's all about.
Yeah, people always ask me what it's like to work with Napoleon now, given just the challenges that he has, and it is such a rich experience being with him. In the sense that just having somebody who's been a friend for a long time and been on the journey with, and we're still able to work together and collaborate, and there's not a big decision that I make on the business that we don't check in on. And it has always been strange working with Napoleon. Even when he was walking and moving around, he's got a unique style and a unique way of working, and was always doing a million things like he is now. And so there's a lot of continuity as well in terms of that. Just in terms of how we hooked up, we met actually at the UNC Chancellor's, I guess it's a mansion or house or whatever. I don't know. It wasn't really, I guess, a house. A big house. But like we were the only, like as far as I knew, the only two black guys there. This is a different time, 10 years ago or whatever it was. And we were both underdressed, and we looked at each other and we said, like, who are you and why are you here? And we wound up hooking up after that, and had our first conversations were debates. They were debates around, my perspective in terms of what was driving inequality in this country and his. And I think what came out of those conversations became eventually some of the insights that led to Activest.
One thing, if folks can, especially on this side, can scoot in or make room. I think, are there folks still needing seats?
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Talib.
How I met Napoleon?
How you met Napoleon, how you came to be working together, at least.
Well, similar to Micah's story, we're black guys that are smart and doing something, and I was a smart black guy in Durham, North Carolina.
Were? No.
Yeah, I was. Got dumber. And I was doing work in Durham, and within the first week, this is in 2014, 2015, everybody's like, you Napoleon? Do you know Napoleon? And they kind of asked me, like, do you come from Napoleon? Did Napoleon send you? And I'm like, I don't know Napoleon. Who's Napoleon? But it took almost 6 months to a year before I finally met him. And when I met him, I immediately knew why they thought we knew each other already and why we needed to know each other. And then we went on. Around that time, I built a conference called Black Wall Street Homecoming, and I asked Napoleon to be on a panel, and he agreed because he would agree to a lot of things that he thought were impactful, but I don't think he had the bandwidth. So, the panel's starting at 1:30, and it's like 1:30, and I'm like, where are you? He's not answering the phone. Then he finally texts like, I'm here. I'm like, no, you're not, because I'm here. There's no way you're here. And then he comes in, he's sweating, and I'm like, he's not dressed appropriately. And he's like, I'm ready. I'm like, all right, cool. He runs on stage, and he kills it. He's the best person on the panel. It's fantastic. Afterwards, I'm like, let's get a beer. We get 5. And I'm like, well, what's going on with you? Then he started to explain to me all the things he was doing. At that time, he was I think Secretary of Commerce or in that getting into that role. And I'm like, what did you do? He's like, well, I've been up since 4. I went to Kinston. I went over here. I did all these other things that day. And like from the first time I met him, it was a testament to how much he was working and how fast he was going at it. You know.
I asked these guys to, tell some personal stories, and they said, actually, in a public setting, we can't actually tell.
That's your limitations.
That's right. Yeah. You mentioned Black Wall Street, which I've walked down in Durham now, and there does seem to be kind of a North Carolina model. We kind of christened it in the ImpactAlpha the other day as the North Carolina model for Black wealth building or reconstruction of Black wealth, as it were. So what is it about North Carolina that seems to have so much activity, and why?
I can kick that off. Well, North Carolina's great. Michael Jordan, is from North Carolina, the GOAT. The GOAT, right? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you. I think that it's still in the water in Durham, right? In Durham specifically, it's Black Wall Street. A lot of people know the story of Tulsa, Oklahoma's Black Wall Street. Don't know the story of Durham's Black Wall Street because it didn't end in bloodshed is what happened in Tulsa, but it ended up in significant economic disinvestment in the community. And a little quick story of Black Wall Street in Durham at the turn of the century. It had probably the strongest black economy in the United States. The second oldest black bank, Mechanics and Farmers Bank, which still exists. I have 2 mortgages with them, as well as the first black-owned insurance company, North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company. And if you really think about it in perspective during that time, that was innovation. Banking and insurance was true innovation. That's happening there. You had North Carolina Central University, strong entrepreneurship. And those businesses were constricted. The highway came through, Highway 147, urban renewal, took out the Hayti community. And funny enough, when I came to Durham in 2015, my family lives there, but I was living somewhere else. I came there, and I'm like, well, where's Hayti? Where's this community they're talking about? I was literally searching for it, like, where am I going to find it one day? I just haven't made a left yet. And I finally sat down with somebody who knows it might have been Napoleon, like, oh, yeah, the highway? It's on top of that, right? That's where the Hayti community was, which supported Black Wall Street. All of that is in the water. It's in the conversations in Durham, while you still have prominent business owners who are building things in Durham. And I think the proximity, the way the city is built, we're constantly, coming out of the institutions there, whether it's education or whether it's corporate, we're putting our heads together to, I think, really invoke the nostalgia that we can do it, and we can do it even better than our ancestors did. And I see that spreading out through more parts of North Carolina, with Durham definitely being a hub of that.
Yeah, and just tying it together, so you mentioned North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company. One of the early events that almost bankrupted that insurance company very early in its existence was actually the Wilmington Massacre. So you saw the Wilmington Massacre up there. Many of those folks had life insurance policies with North Carolina Mutual. There was no federal or state backup for those. These folks were killed in cold blood in the street of Wilmington. The streets literally ran red with blood. Folks' bodies flowed down the river. Shout out to Cedric, who taught me all this history and taught David that. And so we have that history of both this incredible boom of black entrepreneurship, incredible partnerships. So you talked about the fusion, the party there between progressive white folks and black folks in the state, and then these cycles of disinvestment, these cycles of disruption, these cycles of violence that ultimately undercut the ability of black communities to develop wealth in the state.
So when you tie back, Napoleon mentions the sort of running debate you guys have had about dismantling, white supremacy and racism and building black wealth. And I'm kind of what struck me when I went and visited Napoleon the first time a couple of years ago at this point was this notion that there wasn't just one thing that had to get done. There was so many things, and that you had to essentially do them all, and they would be mutually reinforcing and lead to kind of cycles of uplift. But obviously there's been backlash. There's ebbs and flows of that. So how do you just put that all together as a strategy and see that fitting all together?
I think one is just, you talked about North Carolina, so we talked about some of the history and some of the challenges. There's also some incredible energy that's happening across the state. We're doing some work organizing high net worth individuals across the state that are interested in investing in impact-focused strategies, particularly with managers of color. We got some incredible entrepreneurs. Shruti Shaw, I saw Shruti earlier, with Symphonic Ventures, is based in Durham as well. And then Keith Beverly, who you saw in the video earlier, is right there in Durham as well. So there's this incredible synergy in terms of community, as well as the individual things that we're doing in terms of building those 3 companies.
Yeah. One of the, I think, the most provocative things in the film is Napoleon says, you know, impact investing has fallen short of actually making much of a dent in wealth inequality, racial wealth gaps. That might, you know, be a challenge to some of the folks here at SOCAP and others. How do you see that, Talib?
He's spot on, right? We were talking earlier about, which I think is often lost, is the pre-work. The experiences that led us here. Wilson, Micah, myself, our teams, you're talking about, like, across all of the teams, like 10 black men, all master's level, education, some PhDs, right, who have a collective of probably 150 years of experience. And you name it, finance, business, entrepreneurship. We could all not be doing this. We could all be doing something that makes more money, right, for ourselves and our family. But we say, you know what, there's something wrong here within the system. Let's put our heads together. Napoleon puts his head together very quickly, and we're going to dedicate time to build things for these solutions. There's an opportunity cost of that. One is, like, I want a new Benz. I don't have one. I have
No, said a new one. Oh, no.
A new one. It's you, right? No. All jokes aside, like, but what I think is sometimes lost is when we're having the conversations with, capital that we're trying to attract, is like, we already did the work. Like, how much more do I need to do for you to understand that this works, and that the timing of it was yesterday, right? I got chills now. I get irritated when I drive through Washington, D.C., Durham, North Carolina, San Francisco, and I'm looking at disinvested communities. Mm-hmm. And then I say, well, shit, if I had $400,000 to put right there, I can fix that, right? There's a remedy right there. And we spend time doing that with all of our collective experiences and opportunity costs of all those other things to build these things. And the urgency is what I would like to see matched, more from the investor side with our commitment, on the GP side, because there's significant opportunity here, right? We're demonstrating alpha, right? ImpactAlpha. We're demonstrating alpha when it comes down to the returns, that we're able to produce as a result of this work.
You can imagine when Napoleon talks about ImpactAlpha theses, that resonated with us. And Dorian Burton, partner in the Southern Reconstruction Fund, and this Fund 1, talks about starting in the billions and really getting to scale. And you both are trying to work at that kind of level, or ultimately work at that kind of level, and particularly in the sort of fiscal justice. Tell us what the latest is on Activest and Next World.
Yep. So you heard a little bit about Activest and how we started this insight that there are a lot of policies that are very bad for poor people, for people of color, within a place that are also really bad for the business of running a city, right? These are just bad policies on a financial level as well. And so what we work is to really understand what those things are, one, so that we can able to give input and advice to community groups on the ground that are advocating for change happening. Some of our early work, and Napoleon led this work, was in Louisville, Kentucky, where we went with the Tenants Association and a bunch of other folks that were working against some policies that were taking place in that city that were disenfranchising and pushing out folks. And so we took that sort of thesis and really felt like we needed both an opportunity to be able to have sort of that accountability, right, that stick, if you will, to really hold folks accountable to those goals. We needed to also be able to provide resources and it had that sort of carrot, if you will. And so that is really where our new entity, Next World Assets, comes on. We're just a registered investment advisor that just launched last month. Homero is here. Who's
congratulations on that.
Yeah, who is actively investing our first account. We have a separately managed account with Katali, That's a $50 million account that'll be bonds across the South. And so we're interested in both in doing some additional SMAs like that are sort of targeted specific, all of which have our impact thesis in terms of what happens on the ground in places at their core. And then we're also launching a product that's going to be a mix of different fixed income products together in one, the Fire Fund, which will have sort of those bonds, but also some mortgages, asset-backed securities, and some direct investing and corporates as well to give that sort of risk-return profile that folks are looking for, but all of that with the same impact thesis in terms of how that shows up on the ground.
Yeah, and Talib, you know, the title is Equity and Ownership, and equity, partners in equity, but this ownership economy, I know Ida is here somewhere, has been really capturing folks' imagination as a way to accelerate this closing of racial wealth gaps. So tell us about what the thesis is.
That's what we care deeply about at Partners in Equity. We're a private equity fund. We place patient down payment equity for Black and brown business owners to go from renting to owning their commercial real estate. Or if they currently own and need more real estate, you know, we put the capital equity for them to be able to do it. And I like to give a real world example of this. It can be confusing if it's not simplified, because it's super simple, right? One thing that we know from all of our experience and all of our MBAs and all of our work, that is simple. People don't have access to a lot of cash, right? You need cash to what? Make a down payment. You need a down payment to buy your commercial property. So let's say you're a veterinarian in Durham, North Carolina, or in San Francisco, and you're currently leasing your business and you want to buy it. You go to the bank says, great, looked at all your taxes, your P&L, you still got to put down 20%. That veterinarian might have $200,000, but a lot of times that money is all that they have, and they need that to make payroll and other expenses that are coming up. And that's one of the biggest obstacles of creating Black wealth, is being able to take that leap. That's how our capital shows up. So in that scenario, instead of that business owner showing up with a 20% down, they would show up with just 5% down, so $50,000. We put in the $150,000 or more, and we stay in patiently for 7 to 10 years, which is aligned with the commercial mortgage, and then hopefully the property has appreciated while they've also paid down the principal on it. And then we simply refinance the property. They become the single asset owner of it. We take out our minority position. And now hopefully 2 things have happened, right? They've created significant wealth for themselves and their family, and they have autonomy over their lives because it's their money. Okay, and also what we think that we will have done is also fought displacement within communities. I feel like there's been far too many conversations, I'm not gonna hate on them, you know, around gentrification. The conversation is oftentimes short-sighted because all we're talking about is residential. We're not talking about that commercial corridor where you go get your oil changed or you go to the veterinary clinic. We can't be short-sighted, we have to think about that. And that's how Partners in Equity exist. You know, we started our first fund in North Carolina, home of Michael Jordan. And now we're expanding it. We're expanding it with our second fund, which we like to say is in the Black Belt of America, a term that Wilson came up with. So that's like where high concentrations of the Black migration of Black folk are. So that's the Mid-Atlantic. We're also doing some things in Chicagoland, and we're also going to be doing a little bit of work in Southern California because it's very expensive there. And if we don't do it quickly, there will be probably very few Black owners just in LA alone. Again, the timing was yesterday to get to do this work because prices are going up.
So
we'll talk. Boston's expensive too.
Last question, and then just a warning. I'm going to walk around with the mic in sort of talk show fashion, and I'm going to come to you, Wilson, and you, Homura, and you, Art, as well for a moment. But Martin Eakes, who I don't know if folks know, the founder of Self-Help and something of a legend, says in 20 years we'll look back and see this work. So just roll it forward. Say all your plans and dreams come true, and it's scaled up across the country. What does the world look like then?
Well, yeah, another thing that gives me chills is that statistic. Everybody know the statistic that the year 2053, based on the Road to Zero Wealth report, is estimated that Black wealth will be zero. Like, that frightens me. 20 years, 20, 30, very close to us being at a point where the data suggests that Black wealth will be zero. It causes many problems that we don't have enough time to talk about today. If we can chip away at that and reverse that number like in a Back to Future type scenario, I'm showing up for that work. But in 30 years from now, 20 years from now, that number was eradicated, and they can say Napoleon and his crew changed the number, right? And that would feel really good. also with our fund in particular, we want to have, multi-billion-dollar REIT funds as we develop subsequent funds. This is not a flash in the plan. I've already, the opportunity cost is shot itself. I used to work in tech. I could have been an AI guy. It's gone, okay? So all my chips are over here, and I could be making way more money than I'm making now. But this is what I want to do for my life. I want to change what they're saying is going to happen in the data set, and I want to create wealth with community, and I want to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 funds that we're doing under Partners in Equity, and I want to be able to drive around in Chicago. I want to be able to drive around in San Francisco. I want to be like, yeah, we bought that 20 years ago. Look at that. It changed. It worked. I want to have that feeling for myself, for our investors, and for the community 30 years from now.
Yeah, for us, similarly, like I think our vision is comprehensive in the sense that to have the impact that we want to have on the market, it is a market that we need to move, right? It is the way that underwriting happens in bonds. It is the way that bonds are rated. It is the way that Black communities are more likely to pay for insurance on their bonds and pay a higher cost of capital overall. And so to be able to have that sort of market level impact, we need to be bigger than we are right now. Right? And so one of the things that we're really thinking a lot about is how do we grow those funds or those family of funds in such a way that our thesis, which is proven, which we know generates alpha, then becomes more the norm in the society. And then we'll have to figure out another way to make money. But that'll be a good problem to have.
So here I am. This is good, wireless.
Donahue.
Wilson, just want to give you the chance to talk about the work.
I'll just use your example that 20 years from now. We're trying to create over 1,000 net new Black $1 million families. We have not to date made one investment. At the time of signing the deal, that the entrepreneur wasn't net positive $350,000 to their bottom line. This is really about creating transferable wealth in just one generation. And that's the work that we have to do, and that's the work that we're committed to.
And one sec. Homero. I just met Homero in Amsterdam at the gin, so he's doing the double too, and he lives in Amsterdam. And they've just
tell me, you had a question.
I just wanted you to be able to tout the new. They got a $50 million mandate from Qatali, and that's the first part of this new RIA. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's really exciting. I mean, I'm meeting his dad for the first time. It's giving me chills. But Napoleon is like, he's special, man. He's just like, he drives me. He excites me to like make people's lives easier. I walked down Mission Street yesterday, and I was heartbroken, and I go to a lot of cities, and I'm often heartbroken. And, yeah, it made me cry right now, so we're not going to do that. But it's really powerful to do healing work in that way, of to be able to, make people's lives easier. And we just recently finished this birth equity analysis in New Jersey, and we just saw, how many young, Black, brown, indigenous kids are dying every year, and realizing that we need to start all the way back, right? We need to support moms, and we need to support doulas and think about racial bias training, and all of that work is light work relative to what it does in terms of transforming and helping neighborhoods to thrive. And so that's really, I'm encouraged by that. And yeah, that makes my heart feel a little fuller. And so I'm grateful also for all these people that are thinking outside of the paradigms we currently live in to imagine something greater, or includes all of you. And so, yeah, I'm encouraged by all of that.
And every time I asked Napoleon, where all of his drive came from, he talked about his dad, Art here, and Yuri and I went down to Greenville and went to the Gold Post Cafe. Unfortunately, it was not a Friday, so we didn't get the fish fry or the music. So I'm going to come back, Art, and also sample some of that moonshine.
Well, I'm just glad to be in this environment. These are some really, really nice guys doing some really nice things. And my wife and I, she just recently passed, but my wife and I, we used to always say, you know, I think we did do something kind of right because we got him here. But we don't take any credit for the things that he does. And we're just proud of this guy. And he's still rolling. I was with him a couple of days ago. And he's still telling jokes, playing with his kids, and he's still in business. And it's just a good feeling for a parent. And I love these guys because they are with him. Am I right? Yeah, we got him. These guys got his back. Thank you.
And Napoleon, in a couple of minutes, I'm going to give you a chance through the Zoom to have the last word. So get ready. But I think there's some folks who want to.
All I know is I've been crying this whole time. My name is Sherelle Dorsey. I'm a contributing editor to ImpactAlpha and host of the TED Tech podcast. Been rocking with Talib since Black Wall Street Homecoming. I remember when he put that together, and I flew down to Durham because I was like, I'm from Seattle, Washington. And if you know anything about Seattle, like 5% of the population is Black. So going to the South and hearing the history that I had never learned, it was so empowering. And to see you continue to walk this walk, and I think just all of y'all from Napoleon, Micah, everyone on this team, to just see you all as just Black men who are dedicated to the uplift and welfare of everyone, it just continues to inspire, I think, all of our work and why we're in this room. I just wanted to ask about this opportunity with the greenhouse gas reduction fund, as well as the Justice Climate Fund, and the opportunity there and how you all are planning to take advantage of what can potentially be a tremendous wealth building opportunity, especially for Black, Brown, Indigenous communities, to take full advantage of and to participate in this clean energy transition and sort of the urgency of adopting this opportunity, and how you all are using that, are going to leverage that to reach some of those goals of creating these 1,000 Black millionaire families.
I can jump in. Thank you. That's the homies. She's great. Yeah, follow her. She's really talked to her afterwards. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, we're keen on that. One thing to note about Partners in Equity is that the reason why we call it Partners in Equity is for two reasons. One is because we are indeed a partner on the equity stack. We go raise the capital, we put it in alongside you, and we're vested alongside you. The second reason why we call it Partners in Equity is because we are working with the business owner to make sure that the business owner, whether the veterinarian or whether they have the bakery, that they understand how to get the best utility out of the real estate. In the real estate industry, that's called getting your property to its highest and best use, right? So it renders the most amount of value. A lot of business owners, the bakery or the veterinarian, they might not know that. And that's part of our job. And right now, what's going on within the greenhouse, industry, the greenhouse sector, is there's significant capital coming down, especially adjacent to CDFIs, that is designed for the properties to, as well as businesses, right? There's direct business investing. We care more about the real estate side of it, is to make sure that those properties are at the highest and best use, which means, one, upfitting the properties, being able to take the capital inside of our capital stack to make sure that the properties are operating efficiently, or they need to expand, et cetera. Another thing that we're keen on is around like investing in business owners who have built businesses but don't know about the funding and the access that they can have to grow it. I think, we get granular with the businesses. I think about the number of Black business owners I know that are just in construction, right, or they're carpentry. They've already installed some solar panels. They've installed high efficiency windows, right? They're operating through a green lens, but they don't know the language to be able to articulate that so they can get access to the capital. So we're spending a lot of time as a partner in equity to make sure that we're showing up in communities, especially through Appalachia, one of our partners there, to make sure that folks are thinking about that, they're articulating and speaking the right language of the money so the money can move in their favor. And I encourage us all to be thinking about that when in our respective communities, there is a disconnect between how money talks and how regular humans talk, right? We have our meetings with each other and we're talking in algorithms, if you will, about humans who have a bakery or they have a carpentry shop. We have to dumb down the language or change the language. We work with a product called the SBA 504. What does that sound like to you all? It sounds like a car part. I need 2 SBA 504s on row 4, and one in blue. Like, I don't know what that means. Oh, you mean a mortgage? Oh, okay. Like, that's just an example of ways that we can just be, in our communities, be more thoughtful about the nomenclature so we can get more of the money moving and more efficiently.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just real quick. So I'm Chris White. I'm the Deputy ED at the National Bankers Association Foundation. We represent all 23 of the Black-owned banks in the country. We're part of the Justice Climate Fund. We got, I work with Amir and the other folks, we got $940 million. Our banks are going after that to deploy capital. Just wanted to introduce myself and say, let's talk.
Oh, yeah, right on. Thank you.
Okay.
That's a good guy. Yeah.
Hello, how you doing? So my name is Kim Carter-Tillman. I'm the founder of Time for Change Foundation. And I just wanted to find out and give a shout out to Napoleon and his dad and to you brothers for holding the fort down. But is he creating one of them AI language models? Because we need to be able to talk to him forever and a day. And we need to have him on speed dial. So please, if you guys have not considered him creating his own AI language model, y'all work on that, please, so we can get that property and have it ongoing. Thank you.
That is the next project. And Napoleon is
He already know how to do it.
Napoleon is down for that, and we've been talking about it. So just so you know, we talked a little bit about the voices, but the voice of the narration is Napoleon's voice from some podcasts and interviews and whatnot that were done before pre-diagnosis. So the text, the narration text was rolled through that, and the voice that comes through the iPad is the one that sounds a little more robotic.
Hi, my name is Ashley Sims. I'm the managing director of Build in Tulsa. So I'm from Tulsa, historic home of Black Wall Street as well, Durham. But I want to know what we can do, as there were Black Wall Streets throughout the South, what we can do to partner together. What can we do as ecosystems to build bridges across these historic Black Wall Streets for this next generation of wealth building? I don't like to see the information, the expertise siloed in particular areas. I mean, shout out to Atlanta, but what can we do to extend that beyond those borders, beyond those city borders, so that the ecosystem really becomes more of a national ecosystem for Black wealth building, where we're sharing those lessons across all of these populations, particularly in the heartland where we're ignored often?
Yeah, one tangible thing that many of you all who manage assets can do, a lot of times in the impact space, the most exciting and shiny stuff are things that are in sort of venture capital or alternatives. And so many of the clients that we work with, foundations that I've been a part of a journey with 2 foundations of moving to impact investing, sort of fixed income is the last thing they think about. It's just a place where you put things, where you get cash out to make grants and those sort of things. And there is a real opportunity, I think, to transform how we think about what we do with those dollars. That those dollars that we invest in cities, if there are cities that are over-policing, that are giving folks hell, those are not good investments. They should not be tax-free in many cases, right? You're actually supporting a system that is undermining our people. And so I think some of that educational work about what we can do in that part of our portfolio is really important. I think we need everyone in the room to be a part of that process.
Any other questions? Hi, I'm Dr. Candy Dugas, and I am working on a project to help us heal as Black people from intergenerational trauma. But my question, as you all are working on a second wave of reconstruction and rebuilding Black wealth, is what are we going to do to protect it from those that would want to harm it? Because we know that they would, and so I don't want us to rebuild it and it get burned down again.
You gotta protect your neck. Well, one, I think that all jokes aside, I think that it's a tough one. I don't want to alienate our ancestors, but I think the ownership is a critical component to it, because if you own it, it's really hard to take it away. okay? But owning it comes with autonomy, but that's a complicated question. But more money helps solve for it, okay? Part of the reason why we call our fund Partners in Equity, and we came up with the idea, was like we also call it the Rich Uncle Fund, right? Like having someone in your corner that speaks your language, that has access to the capital, that allows you to be stronger in your community, I think is an important part of it. So I think money, right, capital within your community that understands the needs of the community, that shows up and it can have the latitude to be able to support you, is a very important component of it. And I also think that capitalism, with a capital C and align with a capital O around ownership, is important. I'm seeing some innovations around capital that's showing up for our community that doesn't create the autonomy of ownership that I think we need in the community. I still see too much hand-holding on some innovative, if you will, financial products that don't truly empower the community to own the property, right? I see too many programs, like when it comes down, let's take housing, which we all live in one of them, right? Where there's too many programs right now that are focused on assisting you with rent. Somebody still owns the property. How about we democratize who owns the property so that at least a part of my rent vests toward a stake of cash that I can have on hand that I can invest back in my family. So if my health fails, there's a portion of my rent or whatever collateral I'm paying towards something that I can use to be able to benefit myself and my conditions. Again, I think like more solutions that are capital-based that create more equitable distributions of that cash to ourselves and our communities is one hack.
You want to take a cut at it?
Yeah, I think one is just understanding sort of where we are in the process, right? That, I think so much for those of us that care about this world being a better place, when we see backlash or we see, things get stymied the way they are in this moment in the cycle that we are around sort of racial justice, it's very easy to get disheartened. Things are worse than they ever have been, all that sort of stuff, and to ignore the progress that we have made. And I don't mean that to like pat ourselves on the back or give ourselves a round of applause. I'm saying that if we go back to the level of fear and the level of timidity we had 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, it's not only is it, going to undercut our progress, but it's actually missing the moment right now. So we have a moment right now, and I think folks that are in the climate space can relate to this, right, where for many years, when we first started this work at Frontline 20 years ago, you were not allowed to talk about race. Progressive white people in particular, if you brought up the idea of race, would shun you and your work, right, in many cases. We have a situation, and on the climate space, we had folks that were like, this isn't happening, we're pretending like this doesn't even exist, right? We are at a moment right now where those things, those facts, in terms of the things that we talk about in terms of racism, the things we talk about in terms of the way the environment's being impacted, are accepted facts in our space. Even with all the backlash, even with the legal challenges, even with all that stuff, that opens up new possibilities for us fundamentally. So if we take 3 steps forward and we take a step or 2 back, we can't think that we're back where we started, right? We are actually at a moment where we have an opportunity to continue moving forward.
I just want to take my own cut at it because the reason I got fascinated even before I met Napoleon about the Reconstruction and then also about the Wilmington and people do key on the backlash and the end of those things. But what was remarkable is the backlash came because they were successful. Like it was actually working. There was a moment when and we've done a bunch of work, but a playwright named Gene Bruskin says it, the moment when America almost did the right thing. But those 12 years of about 1876, there was thriving black businesses, communities. A lot of them were so thriving that they lasted well beyond, the formal end of it. The Wilmington economy, black, white together was a model. Brittany, who you saw in the film in one of our conversations, and I think I called it an experiment in multiracial prosperity, and she said, no, it wasn't an experiment. It was just taking your foot off the neck and letting the natural things happen. And so there is always a backlash, like you say, but I think we shouldn't lose the fact that it works when we all work together, and there is a possibility, and that's what I was trying to say about the new narrative. It's not probably lost on anybody in this room that there's an election in a week, and and North Carolina is a swing state, and you should. I mean, we all go home and do some canvassing, right? But that narrative is key, because and I don't know that it's quite been crystallized in sort of the national conversation, that there's a way for it all to work together, and all this dispossessed, resentment and whatnot, it can be overcome with these kind of strategies. So.
I'm so glad for your question, because something that I find that comes up in our work is they're taking it from us now and it's not thriving. Like, one example of a place that we've been in is Pritchard, Alabama, and they've had like fines on their water utility, lots of struggles. People have moved out of the town, so now the water bill relative to what people make is even more expensive. And now KKR is trying to buy their water utility. We see the same thing in Jackson, being assets that were owned by the public now trying to be owned by private entities. And I think they're trying to take from us all the time. I think those connections around how we stay together in sharing information around how do you positively hold your community? How do you keep equity? I think sharing those across our borders, like you said, I think that is part of what I am seeing as a solution of sharing strategies and tactics that can work together, because, yeah, they're taking it from us through disinvestment or divestment, and they take it from us when we are invested, and we need to strategize with our urgency to be able to protect that. It's not so positive, but I find it to be my truth, you know what I mean?
We're getting the hook here on timing, but I did. They warned us not to do this because you can imagine the tech problems. But Napoleon, I'll hold the mic to the speaker here. Here you go.
Thank you all for the opportunity to share the story, and to my teams who are building the work that will persist beyond any of our lifetimes. I can't see the audience, but I know that I have a lot of friends in the crowd. Please have a drink in my absence and use it to have some liquid courage with your work. So dream big and chase those dreams with everything you have. I still believe in the markets. I still believe in community. And I still believe in the power of us. We are on the cusp of a new reconstruction, but I am around and available to work with any of you partners who are dedicated to this critical generational work. Thanks again to David, Yuri, and Zulima. You all have been a blessing, and I love you all. Hooray!